Okay, welcome back to my vlog series. This one is going to be a short one because most people are not going to want to watch it, most likely. I'm going to finish up my electric outboard motor for my dinghy. I've had 3 episodes. This will be the 3rd episode on this particular subject. I'm trying to finish it off before I have to sail south. So what I did basically from the last episode is I replaced the speed controller. There's the old one, and there's the new one. Much different size and or abilities, so I'm hoping that solves the problem. But I also did the math and decided that all the other little peripherals that I had on there, the remote controller, this is the power supply for the remote controller, they were all kind of just extra and weren't necessary, because what I ended up doing was basically wiring the 2 batteries in parallel, not series, but in parallel, and they go straight into the new speed controller. So here I am removing the old DC to DC converter that took my 2 batteries in series and turned it into 24 volts. I decided that that was no longer necessary, that I was just going to run my outboard motor at a lesser voltage. So basically I'm going to run it at approximately 21 volts as opposed to 24 volts, which I was told by somebody in the comments would be a fine thing to do and would probably run more efficiently. So since I wasn't lacking in power in the dinghy motor, I was simply, it was a very complicated system and was probably wasting a lot of electricity. So what I want is longevity and the ability to go distance. And so here I am basically just carving out some new spots for the actual hardwired little knob that replaces the trigger that I used last time. So that little knob will control the power, and then there's a little switch on there as well that will control the direction. Here I am using this really interesting new product that I used for this whole job. It's like these little heat shrink solder seal wire connectors. They come in all kinds of different gauges, and you simply slide them onto the wire and then heat them up. I'm using a little propane heat gun that I got for, I don't know, 15 bucks or something on Amazon. And these little connectors, they're not perfect. Sometimes they don't make a good connection, but in general, it's so much easier and more efficient than getting out the soldering iron and doing it all that way. So basically, I used those connectors to solder everything up. I removed the plastic covering on the new speed controller there and wired it up. All right, so here's what I've done. I've got my new box set up with a little switch and a little dial all hooked up to the motor. So when I put it into that mode right there and give it some juice, nothing happens. Something has gone wrong. Fuck. All right, I've got the guts out and I got it working. It was actually a short right here, so it's one of these little connectors, these little easy solder connectors that wasn't making connection, and that's why it wasn't working. So when I was packing it away into its box, it must have come undone. So I'm gonna just try and keep it all going and leave it kind of halfway open, so you can hear it theoretically, and when I turn this thing off, or down rather, it should go away. All right, so after getting the shorted out situation dealt with, I got the motor running and set it up to take off down the channel. I wanted to do like not really a speed test. Here I am going around 2 knots. I believe I'm pulling about 8 to 9 amps. I wanted to see how far this thing would go, so that's the main purpose of this test, to give me a good indicator of the range that I had. I had the Navionics set up there and kind of measuring a little track and timing me and showing my speed and whatnot, which was very useful. And then I also had the little amp meter there connected, which shows the amps. Another cool thing about this trip is that I'm trying out a new camera. Actually, it's the Samsung S21 Ultra, and I'm just cruising around the marina, and the light was really, really beautiful. And these beautiful boats everywhere. Kind of cool to just check things out. This is a research vessel, for a NOAA research vessel. Yeah, it was really fun just to kind of creep around the marina, completely silent. Again, I'm going approximately 2 knots right here, depending on wind direction essentially, and I'm pulling about 8 or 9 amps to get that 2 knots. So very efficient, really cool ocean-going vessel here from Austin, Texas, which I thought was interesting. And then of course all the beautiful fishing boats that are just kind of standing idly by at the moment because the salmon season here in Bodega Bay has been canceled this year because of the droughts that were happening before this past winter. We had 3 or 4 years of really dry weather, which dried up all the rivers, and the salmon season was called off accordingly. Here I am going back the other direction now, going into the wind, so probably going a little less than 2 knots, but still pulling about 8 or 9 amps and being very efficient, very efficient. All right, so we have traveled just over 1 nautical mile and we're still going strong, still pulling just about 9 amps. And I'm just like circling back and forth now, trying to stay close to home just in case, or just, you know, the battery's got to die eventually, so I'm just going back and forth in the channel here. 2.8 knots and we're pulling 17 amps. This is after we've been going for over an hour, traveled more than 2 nautical miles. So I'd say it's a success. Big time. Yeah, so there was kind of a big jump there between the beginning of my test and now towards the end of the test. I'd been going for over an hour, and I felt like it was doing great at the speed that I was giving it. You know, like I said, I got over an hour's worth of runtime on it. So I'm assuming that it's going to die here eventually, and I want to see what it'll do at a higher speed. So I got it all the way cranked up. Again, this is after it's been running for a while, so the battery voltage is probably a little lower than it was to start out with, so not as fast. And also keep in mind that it's only getting 20 volts or less than 20 volts instead of its 24 volts that it's rated for. This little flyby here for my Dagny little home. So all in all, I'd say that the actual electric motor dinghy project is completed. But in the meantime, I thought I would show you some footage of this new camera I mentioned earlier that I just got. It's the S21 Ultra. It is a smartphone. Here I am trying out the new S21 Ultra. This cool sheriff dude came poking around in our marina. Really interesting boat. Very expensive boat probably. But yeah, so I'm just trying out the zoom here. It's working great. Look at the beautiful pelicans. And the popo. So yeah, this is an example of a wide shot. There are 4 different lenses on the camera itself. A wide. This is a telephoto, super telephoto. I'll give you some better examples of that too. But here's that wide shot looking down at the water at the end of Bodega Head right here. And then I pop into, this is a telephoto shot of some crab action, and this is the extreme or super telephoto, so 10 times optical zoom. The cops are back. I don't know what they're doing. Training probably. Oh no, this is not the cops. This is NOAA. Is it NOAA? Can't read that. Looks like they're taking some kids out. What's important to notice here is the optical stabilization. This is all optical stabilization, and it really works incredibly well. This camera is incredible. So here's the optical stabilization on a wider shot. So this is using the wide angle lens. of the S21 Ultra. I'm just walking down the beach. It's kind of uneven, and so if there was no optical stabilization, this thing would be all over the place. So that works really, really well. Got to hand it to him. Okay, so check this out. I'm at the very end of the channel. That's where it goes out to the sea, right over there. And I walked all the way to the end of the beach, and now I'm on this little rocky bit that goes that way. But check this out. There's like a little cave in there, and it's like dripping fresh water, I'm assuming. Oh, it's so cool. Wow. I think the audio quality of this camera is really remarkable as well. That's why I kind of left it running here, just the sound of those drips. The quality of the microphone on this camera is outstanding. It's like a perfect little shower. You come down here for a fresh cold water shower. How nice would that be? Or how cool would it be to like build some sort of sweat lodge out here on the beach and then be able to come in here and just cool off. Wow, that's so cool. Okay, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I appreciate all the likes and subscribers. All the comments that I've received in the past have been extremely helpful, especially for this electric outboard dinghy motor project. It was the comments that kind of got me through in the end, so I really, really appreciate that. I'd like to mention that I do now have a PayPal account, so if you are not interested in helping out on Patreon for whatever reason, I do have a PayPal account now that you can make small donations if you'd like to help this channel along. I sincerely appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next episode.